Hello, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to this week's edition of Open Dialogue, part 2, focusing on the rituals of Muslims. We focused in the previous session on Hajj. It's an apt time, it's the time for Hajj. So what could be better than to look at the rituals of Hajj as our central focal point. But rituals don't end on the Hajj. As Maulana has said to me during the break, that these rituals are from God. The rituals which are there within the Holy Quran, which were there very clearly during the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's time, they are one set of rituals. There are other rituals as well. I mean, I could raise the ritual of Taraweeh, I could raise rituals of the whirling dervishes, of the Sufi orders, we could raise the rituals of Taziyah and various other commemorative acts around the Shahadat of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. These are the topics that we want to now turn our attention to. But before we do that, we are going to complete our summary about the rituals of Hajj. Maulana, just a summary about what you think about some of the other rituals that people perform during the Hajj.
Yeah, actually, if you just summarize them, going to Mina and Arafat, leaving everything in itself is a great ritual. Then picking up stones from there, and then hitting the three shaitan, small, big, and medium, and hitting them in itself is a ritual. It's not just that pillar that we hit. It's like, don't feel shy in this to shun off the satanic inclinations within us. And if we don't change there, if we don't change our way of thinking, if we don't change our behavior, if we don't change our attitude, all this Hajj is useless. It's just like going away and then turning back and coming back. Oh, I'm Haji, and next year I'm Al-Hajj and Wal-Hajj, and all this is of no use.
That's a really important point.
It's a change within myself.
You're acquiring a change.
Yes, and as I said, that the political aspect, the intellectuals, they get together there. I don't say that in the millions of people they have to discuss with each other. No, but intellectuals from different places, from different cultures, they can get together. There have to be a political conference of the whole Muslim Ummah for the whole humanity.
To get us beyond tribalism, nationalism.
Yeah, it's have to you to leave your country. Geography. Allah created the whole earth for the mankind. He didn't create Europe and Asia. It's we made it. Europe, Africa, America, Australia, Asia, all these are our divisions. As a human being, earth is meant for the whole humanity, for the whole human being. So here, every human being is there, from Africa, dark skin, white skin, Asian, Arab, Indian, Chinese, any sort of person you find there. Like in human being, I would just like to add one more thing, that for example, I've got a dark skin, another one has got white skin, another is for African background. Did anybody ask us, where do you want to be born? It's all by chance. So these differences, we take off the skin, we are all the same. So there, the outer skin has been taken off. Our clothes, our culture, our everything, it's gone. The real human being, me, my character, my behavior, my attitude, my thought, my soul, my body, my thoughts, my vision, everything is cleared from those contaminations. And after Hajj, say the person is like a newborn baby from his mother without any contamination. This is the theme of Hajj. And Hajj in itself, I would say, as I said in the break, that Hajj is a thing, you keep on learning about it. You keep on studying. You keep on reading. You won't be able to learn Hajj without performing Hajj in itself. And it's not the first Hajj that you will learn. And next Hajj, the second Hajj, you will come to know. Then first you're learning, second time you're performing, third and fourth, later on, you start getting the spirituality from Hajj. It's not just some rituals there. It's a great spirituality which enhances the soul of a person and takes the soul of a person to link it with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we get rid of all these contaminations, then our soul comes to a point to get attached to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is clear of any sort of bad things.
Again, Maulana has very, very succinctly summed it up, really, that the purpose of all rituals in Islam is not the ritual itself. They're the beginning of a means to the end. The destination is something else. The destination is Allah, union, understanding, knowledge of the self, and knowledge of what Allah requires of us, and taqwa and piety and all these good actions and service. The Prophet, peace be upon him, delivered
I would
service.
add, these are not the requirements even. This is not the requirement. This is the requirement of getting close to Allah. You can't come close to Allah with all these contamination. Like about Ahlul Bayt, it said in the Quran that Allah has cleared them from any type of contaminations, I would say, sins of bad things, negative things. So a clean thing can attract only a clean thing. If our soul is clean, our soul can get close to Ahlul Bayt. And Ahlul Bayt, they are clean. They are the ones who are the closest ones to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because of the cleanness of their body, soul, mind, and everything, in every form, in every sense. So we need to clean ourselves from these rituals in itself. They are mean. They are not the aim and objective. Aim and objective, like in Niyyah, what we say, qurbatan illallah. We pray qurbatan illallah. We do Hajj qurbatan illallah for the sake of closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And close a person can come only and only when he matches that thing. North Pole and North Pole, you bring them together, they will repel each other. You have to be in the same frequency, in the same line to come close to Allah subhanahu. How we are close? For coming close, we need to see that are the attributes of Allah there in us? Allah has, at the first introduction of Allah with the mankind in the first ayah of the Quran, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah who is Rahman and who is Rahim. Both of them come from Rahmah, blessing. Where is the blessing within me? If the blessing is not in me, how can I say that I am close to Allah? I can get close to Allah if you are close to a heater, for example. You must absorb the heat of the heater. You must be able to give that heat to everyone. You must be able to spread that blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if you are close to Allah. These rituals, these ibadat, this prayer, as-salatu tanha anil fahsha'i wal munkar, from bad things and munkarat which Allah is undesirable, cleans you. The prayer cleans you. Let's see what it does. Similarly, as Brother Evans was saying, you go for Hajj now, for example. What you are saying about the Hajj at the time of the Prophet and today. You go to Medina, for example, to the mosque of Medina, the Masjid al-Nabawi. What you see outside, they're all shops filled with gold, selling gold. What's that? The worldly thing, the worldly desires. And people, while you're going to the mosque, you are seeing all those gold markets, and they're attractive, they attract and distract you, your soul from. Allah wants you to get rid of these worldly desires to reach Allah. You can't climb a high building with loads and loads of weight on you.
Well, others argued very passionately for perhaps a simplification, going back to the roots of what Hajj is about and the cleansing, the purification, the preparation. I think that's an adequate food for thought, I think, for people who are not only there at the Hajj, but perhaps planning to. You have to really prepare yourself. And the Hajj rituals, the Hajj concept is a much bigger concept than simply visiting and traveling and having an interesting holiday, perhaps, which is what some people do actually seem to turn it into.
I was going to add that this is fantastic to listen to, especially when Maulana speaks with such passion. Whether he's on the pulpit or whether he's sitting on a chair in an open forum, it's just as eloquent and captivating. And of course, the subject matter of Hajj is truly fascinating. Whether you look at it from a philosophical perspective or whatever. What I'd like to just mention here is, because the subject matter being rituals and traditions, yes. The way, when you have a ritual, when you have a tradition, it is defined by the way it's, the reason for how it's done, what its original source was, but also what is important is how the world sees it as well. That's another thing, that we in this world now have an issue. Because the world is so small, how are we perceived? How are our rituals perceived? When Maulana was talking that though people can't interact, the general masses, just because of the demographics, because of the setup, they can't interact. But the ulama, the senior, the clerics, etc., should interact, interfaith dialogue, etc., for different madhab to interact. Because it's very important, because there are so many misconceptions about these rituals that are done in the name of Shiism, that are done in the name of Sunnism, that are done in the name of whatever strand of Islam. Exactly. And other religions. As well. For instance, because we were talking about sacrifice, the actual sacrifice, the sacrificing of an animal, of a sheep or whatever, at Hajj, symbolizes something that's very, very symbolic and is a key factor. Now, the question is, could we ever perceive Hajj without that sacrifice.
No.
Simple.
Yeah.
We can't. So,
But we could look deeper at it, Sohail, because when they're sacrificing these animals there, I mean, I understand there's a huge number of people, but was the Prophet's intention that we were going to kill all these animals and then throw them away to rot?
No, exactly.
So where's our environmental, our animal welfare conscience? Where's our conscience
which is
about
exactly where I'm coming to.
the depth of that?
It's not just that. That's just one element. That dialogue's been in forums for a very, very long time. 20 years probably. However, the other thing that I'd like to bring to it, I mean, I can't remember the name of the football club. It's a Turkish football club. Every time it wins a stage in the league, in the tunnel, before the players come out, they do a sacrifice there. Now, this is being brought up against into FIFA's knowing. And there is a big backlash by the majority of clubs that they're thinking of banning playing with this club or boycotting the club because of its ritual. They don't understand. So what I'm saying is that rituals being rituals, Maulana has already said that there is no way that we can give this up. We cannot.
But they can be misinterpreted.
They are misinterpreted, and so what do we do about that? That's another dialogue altogether. So
okay, we're going to have that dialogue now. We're actually going to go into this, but I have a little video clip which should warm everybody up in terms of the range of rituals within the Shia school of thought. And again, sometimes I get scared because when we divide these words into Shia, Sunni, it's not the intention of Elevate TV to deliberately create divisions. The realities that there are different schools of thought. There are people with different opinions, different ideas, and the ages have created our schools of thought, and we stand by them, and one has to have the strength of one's convictions. But in the context that our Kaaba is one, our Quran is one, our Prophet is one. The entire centrality of our faith is one. Beyond that, you can have, and it's inevitable, and the Quran alludes to this, that we have made you different tribes so that you can recognize each other, so you can acknowledge each other and learn, I guess, from each other. That's the spirit in which we're having this conversation. For those people who don't come from the Jafri school of thought, please don't take it as an imposition on the part of people from the Jafri school. We did invite people from the Sunnah wal Jamaat, but yet again, it's a real reluctance on the part of some of our Sunni brethren to turn up onto shows. I don't know why that is. We'll explore why.
We're talking about Islam.
Yeah, and we're talking about Islam, but it's there are a lot of viewers out there who may plug in and may they do label these channels. They label the channels. That's a Shia channel. That's a Sunni channel.
Channel
that's
is not a Shia channel. How is a person can be Sunni or Shia?
Absolutely.
A Muslim can be Sunni and Shia.
We're talking about Islam. We're talking about Islam. We're talking about a certain school of thought. My school of thought may not entirely match Maulana's. It may not match entirely Sohail's. We're individuals. We're individual human beings with individual thought, with individual rights to action. And when we get into the grave, we're going to deal with our own individual account with God. Nobody else is going to come and stand in there, help us at that stage.
But even in the same school of thought, people different.
They have different.
They've got different.
And we need to understand this difference exchange.
Yeah.
We need to be able to the difference agreement.
Yeah.
We need to understand these skills because as Muslims we tend to label each other very, very quickly. And this is why the issue of rituals again is very, very important because it's one of the key starting points for labeling each other. And I find it's a fitna. I find it's a potential danger and it's a potential threat. So we're trying to hopefully educate ourselves and others about that potential danger and the danger of falling into that fitna. Here's a clip. Do join us right after this clip.
One of the significant events for Shia Islam is the first month of the Islamic calendar, Muharram, with its meanings and rituals. It was on the 10th day of Muharram, known as Ashura, that the third Imam of Shias, Imam Hussein, the son of Imam Ali and grandson of Prophet Muhammad, was killed at Karbala, now located in Iraq. During history, Shias have tried to revive the ideology and the message of Karbala in various ways, most importantly through the morning ritual. Remembrance of Imam Hussein, his words and message, his view and ideology, his death, and the events surrounding that death are the main parts of these rituals, with both speculative and emotional aspects. During Muharram, people gather in mosques or other places to listen to clergy and speakers explain the message of Karbala and Imam Hussein's actions and death. In these holy ceremonies, Shias also use symbols for the main aspects of Karbala. Flags are in three colors: red for blood and dying for beliefs, green for the Prophet's family, and black for sadness and mourning. The ceremonies held during the mourning month of Muharram have two aspects: rising up against injustice with devotion and courage, and the tragedy of martyrdom of Imam Hussein on Ashura. The mourning ceremonies are divided into 4 sessions: elegy, public procession, forming lines of funeral, and taziyah, which is a dramatic play with poems about the tragedy of Ashura. As part of Muharram ceremonies, in mosques as well as in private homes, people prepare large quantities of excellent food which is given away for free, called Nazri. Everyone queues up for the Nazri, not necessarily because they can't afford to buy food, but because it is believed by some that Imam's food, as they call it, has healing powers. The killing of Imam Hussein at Karbala, which took place in the year 61 in the Islamic calendar, 680 AD, is one of the seminal events in the development of Shia Islam. Imam Hussein had refused an alliance with Yazid, the second caliph of the Umayyad Caliphate, who ruled for 3 years from 680 AD until his death in 683 AD. Imam Hussein declared that Yazid's administration and government were not legitimate because they were not following the Prophet Muhammad's manner and path. As Imam Hussein was the only living grandson of the Prophet, his refusal to pledge allegiances could jeopardize Yazid's position. The Caliph put an ultimatum to Imam Hussein: acceptance of his supremacy or death. Imam Hussein had announced that he had no intention of starting a war, but Yazid left him with no choice. Imam Hussein, his family, and his companions met thousands of Yazid's troops in Karbala. Hussein's 72 companions and his family were all slain.
There we have it, a particular focus on the way the martyrdom of Imam Hussein al-Islam is commemorated in Iran, a very specific cultural and religious zone, if you like. I could equally have picked on the Sufi orders of Mevlana Rumi, which have the whirling dervishes and have a whole series of meanings and thought behind their rituals and their practices and their symbolism. And every community seems to evolve these rituals and symbolism. We live in an era where quite often the takfiri tendency to call all practices bid'ah, particularly, wouldn't apply obviously to the Hajj. The conversation we were having were about rituals that were there during the time of the Prophet at the Hajj. These rituals of Wawela, let's use, I think, the example of Imam Hussein alayhi salam in particular, because Imam Hussein alayhi salam is a symbol for all Muslims. He's a unifying symbol for all real Muslims in that sense, that nobody can really stand up to deny the sacrifice for the deen. Nobody can really stand up and say, well, actually that had no significance, or it wasn't relevant to what was going on during the Prophet's time, or he didn't secure the spirituality of the Prophet in his time. That's an absolute given across the board with all Muslims, and even Orientalists invariably all agree with this. The rituals that have come up within the context of Imam Hussein Islam and his battle for justice, as the video talked about as well, are many. And it could be argued that particularly the Shia, who were often persecuted, hunted down by the Umayyads, hunted by the Abbasids, evolved first of all in a real sort of silence, in underground, because they were being persecuted, killed, hounded. The Shia of the Ahlul Bayt were not allowed to do what they wanted. They weren't even allowed to perhaps create their symbolism or their faith, or even to exercise their jurisprudence in a free and open way for vast periods in Islamic history. That's another fact. It's another reality. Yet, the deen as taught by the Ahlul Bayt survives. And it survives in such splendor, it survives with such magnificent ceremony and rituals and a richness of symbolism which is probably not matched within the mainstream other schools of thoughts within Islam. It's not even matched within there. I'll mention a few that came up on that. The Ziyarat-e-Ashura, the Majalis al-Taziyah, all the different symbolisms, the alams, all the various different symbols and rituals that have emanated. I think it's important to maybe go through some of those, Agha, because people who don't know about these symbols, and Suhail, you and yourself in particular are very passionate about the meaning of these symbols. I'd like to steer the discussion now still with Hajj in mind and rituals, because it's not bid'ah, it's not bid'ah to pray in front of the Kaaba even though it's a stone brick building. Sure. You're not praying to the Kaaba. Let's think a bit deeper. Yes, let's think a little bit more esoterically. It's not the Kaaba you're worshipping, is it? And that's whether you are a Takfiri or whether you're a sort of a Sunni or a Deobandi or a Shia or a Sufi. You're all worshipping. You're all praying towards a brick building. Sure. You're not worshipping the brick building. So let's, in that spirit, try to look a little deeper at these rituals that take place, particularly within one school of thought, which I'm going to focus on, which is the Fiqh Jafriya, and particularly around Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Agha, do you want to kickstart on some of the rituals and the symbolism of Shia Islam?
Actually, you spread quite good into the vast spectrum, and I think it's a topic which needs more than one discussion.
Absolutely.
More than
this is simply a starting point.
Starting point. But I would just like to try to summarize in a very short manner that we need to understand where did it start from. The Karbala and Ashura, these rituals, they are not rituals like other rituals. It has got a background. It has got it's linked with, not linked with the Shia, the followers of Ahlul Bayt school of thought. It's linked with Islam in itself, you know. I would just like to summarize that before the time of the Prophet, there was a system of governance in the whole Arab Hijaz and all this area. People used to come and struggle and strive and become the leaders of the tribes. And this was a tribal system. They had their own culture, their own values. Hajj people used to perform, but that was all Hajj. It had nothing to do with linking the creation with the creator. It was their own tribal feuds who used to control, and the wealth, money used to come and they used to get distributed, and it was a system. When the Prophet ﷺ came there, Prophet Muhammad, he dismantled that system. And a new system, a new culture of Islam was introduced, where everyone was equal. It was on the base of equality, and it was equal options for all the one. Bilal from Africa, and Abu Zar Ghaffari, and Salman from Fars, from Persia. Everyone was attracted to the theme of Islam. It is meant for the whole humanity. After that, after the demise of the Prophet, during the time of the Prophet, people started fighting with the followers of the Prophet, like they've been doing with the followers of any prophet, like they've been doing with the followers of Jesus Christ, like they've been doing with the followers of Prophet Ibrahim and Moses. Similarly, they started fighting with them, and they had Battle of Badr, Uhud, Khandak, and Khaybar, and those battles were fought. All of them were aggressive battles from the non-Muslims on the Muslims. None of them was offensive battles from the Muslims. After the conquest of Mecca, when Mecca was conquered by the Muslim without a fight, without killing, without anything, the battle style changed. Now, till that time, the two armies used to come and they used to fight. Now, they started fighting from inside. From inside, and that battle went till the time of Karbala, when the whole system was hijacked by a person like Yazid, who had nothing to do with the teachings of Islam. And he became the Khalif. Before that, the Khalif was considered as a religious head and a political head. Yazid, when became the other Khalifs, the Fiqh Jafari or Ahlul Bayt school of thought differ with how the Khalif should be. They thought that Imam Ali should have been, is the successor to the Prophet, and the other school of thought, they think that the Khulafa, the four Khulafa, the last one of them is Imam Ali, they should be the main, and we should reach the Prophet through those Khulafa. But on that's okay. But coming to Yazid, he used to do certain things which were opposite Islam, like drinking, like womanizing, like other things, which were in contradiction to Islam. Now people thought him to be a political leader as well as religious leader. So if they would have taken Yazid as a religious leader, the whole Islam would have been buried on that day.
Sure.
So these thoughts, those people, then the grandfather, grandmother of Yazid was the one who chewed the heart of Hazrat Amir Hamza, the uncle of the Prophet in the battle of Uhud. They had enmity with the...
So a family business.
Yeah, no, it was not family. It was because of Islam they were enemies of the Prophet Muhammad with them. So when they came down, after Imam Hussein stood against Yazid. What happened? After Imam Hussein ﷺ sacrificed, this system, it was a battle of system of the Prophet, which was led by Imam Hussein, and the system of non-acceptance of Islam, of fighting Islam through Islam, and we would say at the time of Imam Ali, Khawarij, exactly the same pattern. Now it's at this time of history, it's very, very easy to understand.
That's you've given a fantastic 5-minute summary of a history which leads to the emergence.
I would just like to add one more thing. That the takfiris that we are seeing today, which are 0.01% of the Muslims, similarly the Yazid in itself was not the head of 0.01% of the Muslims, but with his power, with his army, with his all, and with his what you can say, with his force, and with his cruelty and brutality, he tried to control Islam.
So let's connect that video, the video that we've just seen a little while ago, to the history which Agha has just pinned up. That gives us an expression now in Iran many, many years ago. And let's not forget that Iran was actually following not the Jafri school for many years. It was about the 15th or 16th century that it turns to the Jafri. But today in Iran, you have that expression of the love of Imam Hussein alayhi salam in those different forms. The taziyah, the kind of the plays, the majalis. All these things have evolved as expressions of love. Now you call them rituals.
This also happens in Iraq also.
Yes.
It's not just Iran.
It's Iraq and beyond, and it's beyond. But I'm
in
just
Arab world also. They've got these rituals.
And they all slightly vary. The way people deliver these rituals in Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iraq, Lebanon, Iran are all subtly different. But at the heart of them is all love. I mean, my contention would be at the heart of all these rituals and the evolution of these rituals is one, love, and second, the ability to bring people together, which again we talked about in Hajj. We talked about the Hajj rituals bringing people together, uniting. So the love of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, the remembrance of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, through these rituals unites people, brings them together. Yes. And it's a something. Now, Suhail, you're at the center of a lot of these rituals. And we talked about Majlis al-Taziyah, Ziyarat al-Ashura, Ziyarat al-Arba'in, Al-Mawaqib, Al-Husayniyah, Tashabih, self-flagellation, and Latmiyah. These are the 6 fundamental ritualistic sort of ceremonies or teaching or education that goes on, which actually people don't necessarily know. Even in the wider Muslim world, they don't understand these.
Well, the problem is they don't understand it within Shiism as well. That's another issue. You see, Shiism is such a vast thing, and this is essentially a faith.
Original Islam. Would you call it original Islam?
Well, let me.
Would you put that challenge down?
Well, Yes, I would say that.
We can't say that it's original Islam, and the other ones they are not. They have nothing to do
No,
with
no,
Islam.
No, but
I think
there's
that-
got to be a fountainhead.
No, but we leave the place. You know, Islam is for everyone. You know.
It is indeed.
Okay.
It is indeed. But the importance of ritual, if I can just sort of just break it down a little bit. There's ritual and there's ritual. Qibla said that there are certain rituals are very, very important to the religion itself. An example, breaking a fast with a date is a ritual, Islamic ritual. Had we, God forbid, but if Islam possibly came, well, not in that part of the world, and if instead it was in Greece, so we'll be opening possibly with Tara Masalata or something. I have no idea. But the thing is that that's a ritual, but it's not that significant. If you break your fast without a date and just have water or salt or whatever, then that's okay as well. However, that is also a ritual, and the 6 items that you mentioned on your list, they are also rituals. But the importance of these latter 6 is vastly, vastly different to something that's
Simply eating a date.
Exactly. Although in some sectors within Islam, people regard the date as being, they will have arguments with you about the importance of the date.
Well, I mean, those people who argue like that, the problem is that then they ought to also go by the Sunnah, which says that the Prophet wore yellow shoes and a black cape, and we should all walk around exactly as he did.
Exactly.
It seems rather an erroneous argument to say that they're
Exactly.
going to follow the Sunnah of the Prophet because he ate dates, and that's why.
But
That's the only
just
thing.
is not just a sunnah. It's also like you are hungry. For example, salt you eat first. If the date is not well, you take salt. Salt, you know the
It calms-
acidity in
Calms
yourself.
it down.
That's calmed down. Or energy. A date is a sign of energy.
Okay,
also.
come back to Sven, sorry.
Coming back on the ritualistic side, certain rituals are very, very important and are.
So what's the difference
actual-
between this
Well,
date-eating ritual and the ones you're going to
The
talk
ones
about?
I'm talking about, we are talking about these 6 items here. For instance, specifically, what separates, you said, how does, for some reason, we can see, you mentioned a little while ago, that Shia Islam, as the way it's evolved, and it's maintained its purity within that over the centuries, where you can see that some of the others perhaps don't. I'm welcome if people want to call in and disagree, but the reason for that, the reason why there is that difference, it is this issue of Karbala. It is purely down to this issue of Karbala. And I will quote something here. The issue of Karbala cannot be forgotten and is commemorated the world over, and will never be forgotten, and to our dying breaths. Now that is a promise that we have. Every Shia has made with themselves. However, one thing that is important to mention over here is this commemoration nowadays, because of various things, because of information, because of misinformation, because of propaganda, etc., even there are people who are ill-informed about these rituals. Shair Allah, about flagellation, self-flagellation itself, is a misunderstood concept. And those people who don't understand it then will question it in a certain way, which is dangerous, shall we say. Dangerous because it spreads further misconceptions. And because we are all highly opinionated. Just an example, if you take any of a forum, you go onto a forum and, for instance, type in, because you were saying rituals. Today, before I came, I said, let me just Google Sunni and Shia ritual differences and traditions. And I just typed it into Google, see. Half a dozen things came up, questions and answers to it. And because these forums are that somebody suggests a question, somebody else will second it or elect and give it a thumbs up or something like that, it will become the answer, which is number one answer. It's not based on anything, it's just based on conjecture and a personal opinion for as much knowledge as he has or doesn't have.
Isn't that the same as the old days when, say, somebody came to me and I would say I was not of this school or I didn't practice these they said to me, oh, do you know that Shias, they they switch lights off on the 10th day of Muharram when they all gather, and then they sort of cut somebody up and they sacrifice them and spread blood on pilau rice, and then they eat it. These are actual things that have been said. This is a common thing amongst the Punjab. In the Punjab,
correct,
this is a common rumor that is sent out. So it's very easy to attack rituals and to spread disinformation, and it is happening. It's happening more so now.
Hence, it's important for us to differentiate between ritual and ritual. There are certain types of ritual that we can certainly discard, which may be excessive, but let's be straight, and we need to have a clear, open dialogue that specifically around this issue of Karbala, nothing is superfluous.
Okay.
Let me give you an example. One example.
One example. We have a caller on the line, but please give you an example.
One example. I will give the example of this is a quote by Maulana Ibrahim Al-Amini, who from yesterday wrote 100 how many volumes? 107 volumes? 110 volumes of Al-Ghadir. Very, very eminent alim of the past. And he wrote, when people asked him about Karbala and asked him about the commemoration of Ashura, and said that because he's an educated person, a rational person, they said that, Maulana, don't you think this is all a bit barbaric? Don't you think, exactly the questions that are being posed today, this is nothing new, that don't you think this is irrational behavior? I mean, why do people do this? Do we really need this in this day and age? And this is many, many years ago. And his answer was yes. It's absolutely categoric, yes, we need it. And his reason was, he says, Ghadir. He says, had you made such a big deal of Ghadir, today you would not have had
Ghadir being the incident where Imam Ali alayhi salam is given the successorship by the Prophet.
In front of 120,000 people.
Sahabas.
In front of 120,000 Sahabas, yet today, people are saying, did it ever happen?
But can we get the caller online?
All I was saying, Karbala, 72 people, all died, but we still remember it. Why? It says Azadari. So Azadari is very, very important. Had we done the same for
keeping it alive.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's what it's all about.
Caller, your comment or your question, please. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
Walaikum assalam.
जी जैसी बात कर रहा हूँ मैं सुहेल भाई से बात करनी थी
जी जरूर कीजिएगा सुहेल भाई सुन रहे हैं
जी ये माशाल्लाह भी आपने बहुत अच्छी बात कही हज के
आवाज की थोड़ी सी प्रॉब्लम है could you try again कोशिश करो can you speak again जी जी अभी आवाज आ रही है
आपकी आवाज सही आ रही है
जी अभी आपकी आवाज भी सही आ रही है
जी आपने बड़ी अच्छी बात कही मातम के हवाले से अभी ये मातम को जरा एक्सप्लेन करेंगे कि हम मातम करते क्यों हैं
सोहेल जी मातम करते क्यों हैं जदी साहब
ये मौलाना साहब भी बैठे हैं जरा इनसे भी थोड़ी सी वजाहत चाहूंगा
बिस्मिल्लाह किबला बिस्मिल्लाह
जी हाँ उर्दू में फिर मेरे ख्याल
बिल्कुल उर्दू में बेशक
उर्दू में जो पाबंदियां होती हैं आप उसके हक में या खिलाफ हैं
ये सबसे पहले बात यह है कि अभी हमारे जिस तरह रिचुअल्स और इसके बारे में बात हो रही थी मातम के फेवर में और मुखालफत वाली बात नहीं है रिचुअल्स को देखना चाहिए कि असल जो अगर मातम और आज़ादारी को देखा जाए हमारा मातम को किस चीज़ में आप तसव्वुर करते हैं आप सीने पे अगर इंसान हाथ रख के ऐसे मातम करता है तो ये भी मातम है अगर हाथ उठा के मातम करता है वो भी मातम है अगर आप मिसाल के तौर पे गिरिया कर रहे हैं वो भी मातम है ये भी मातम का एक तरीका है ना और अगर मिसाल के तौर पे आप चेन्स लेकर जिस तरह मारते हैं लोग वो भी मातम है और अगर आप मिसाल के तौर पे छुरी लेकर और अपने आप को चेन्स में छुरियां बांध के मारते हैं वो भी मातम है सारे मातमों को आप एक उसमें कैटेगराइज नहीं कर सकते लेकिन मैं आपको कुल्ली तौर पे जिस तरीके से हम डिफाइन कर रहे थे अपने रिचुअल्स को और इन चीज़ों को ये मैं शुरू में प्रोग्राम के मैंने बता दिया था कि रिचुअल्स जो है ना वो दो किस्म के हैं एक वो रिचुअल्स है जिस तरह हज का है ये अब खुदाई एक तरीके का तरीक़ेकार है अल्लाह ने एक इबादत को और उसको बनाया है इमाम हुसैन अलैहिस्सलाम के साथ मरबूत जितने भी रिचुअल्स हैं उनका बुनियादी सिर्फ एक मकसद है अगर उस एक मकसद से वो हट जाएं सारी चीज़ें ख़त्म हो जाती हैं वही मकसद जो इमाम हुसैन अलैहिस्सलाम का मकसद था जब करबला से निकल रहे हैं तो वो क्या कर रहे हैं कि उरीदु अन आमुरा बिल मारूफ व अनहा अनिल मुनकर ये उन्होंने लिख के करबला के वाक़े का मकसद जो बताया कि अम्र बिल मारूफ और नही अनिल मुनकर है जो इस्लाम के पूरे सिस्टम को हाईजैक करने की कोशिश की जा रही थी उसको रोकने के लिए इमाम हुसैन अलैहिस्सलाम निकले हैं हमारा कोई भी रिचुअल, कोई भी तकरीर, कोई भी नौहा, कोई भी मातम, कोई भी अंदाज हमारा अगर अम्र बिल मारूफ और नही अनिल मुनकर से अलग हो जाएगा तो इमाम हुसैन की कॉज से और उनके रास्ते से अलग हो जाने के इम्कानात बन जाते हैं। अब
क्योंकि आपकी नजर में है कोई ऐसी जगह कि जहां पे मातम
मैं उसके बाद पहले उनका डिफाइन करूं, फिर मैं आपके साथ, फिर आपके क्वेश्चंस के लिए भी मैं मौजूद हूं, मैं इसके बारे में बिल्कुल क्लियर बात करना चाहता हूं। अच्छा, अब अगर मिसाल के तौर पे हम उसमें कोई चीजों को हम ले लेते हैं, कुछ चीजें ऐसी हैं जो शरई हैं, ये हम जुलूस निकालते हैं, क्या है, हम रोड पे आते हैं, क्या है, अभी हम क्लिप्स देख रहे थे, मिसाल के तौर पे ये क्या चीज है, सब चीजों में एक चीज का कदर मुश्तरक है, और वो कदर मुश्तरक ये है कि ये ऐलान जुल्म है। शरीयत कहीं भी आवाज उठाने को से रोकती है, दीन रोकता होगा, लेकिन जहां पर जुल्म हो जाए वहां पर वाजिबात में से हो जाता है कि ऐलान जुल्म किया जाए। जालिम के खिलाफ खड़ा होना, ऐलान जुल्म करना, यह वाजिबात में से है, और आपने वहां पे खड़े होकर फिर खामोशी नहीं इख्तियार करनी। जालिम ने जुल्म कर लिया, आपके पास दो रास्ते हैं, ना शरीयत कहती है ना जालिम बनो ना मजलूम बनो। मजलूमों, जालिमों के साथ बहुत सारे मजलूम हैं जो जहन्नुम में डाले जाएंगे। वो कौन से मजलूम हैं? वो मजलूम हैं जिन्होंने जालिम के जुल्म पर खामोशी इख्तियार की और उनकी वजह से जालिम को शय मिली कि वो और जुल्म करे। अब जो करबला में जो जुल्म हुआ है वो इंडिविजुअल के अगेंस्ट नहीं है, इमाम हुसैन एक फर्द का नाम नहीं है, इस्लाम के दाई, इस्लाम के बानी हजरत पैगंबर अकरम सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम के जानशीन के तौर पे इमाम हुसैन वहां पे मौजूद है। करबला में इमाम हुसैन पे हमला, ये इस्लाम के ऊपर हमला है, रसूल पाक के ऊपर हमला है। इसमें सुन्नी शिया सारे उलमा इस बात को मानते हैं कि शफी कादरी साहब अपनी उन किताबों में और मजालिस में पढ़ते रहेंगे कि इमाम हुसैन की शहादत दर हकीकत रसूल पाक सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम की शहादत है, और इमाम हसन अलैहिस्सलाम को जहर दे के शहीद किया जाना ये रसूल पाक की शहादत है। लेकिन वापस मौजू के ऊपर आते हुए, करबला में जो वाक़या हुआ है असले इस्लाम को बचाने के लिए हुआ है, और असले इस्लाम के उसूल और कवायद और जवाबित वही हो जाते जो यजीद कर रहा था अगर इमाम हुसैन उनके मुकाबले में ना खड़े होते। अब ये ऐलान जुल्म किस तरीके से किया जाता है? रिचुअल्स दो हिस्सों में तकसीम हो जाते हैं। एक वो रिचुअल्स हैं जिनके ऊपर शरीयत ने जिसको वो कहा है, लेकिन उसमें ऑटोमेटिकली जो लोगों का कल्चर है, इलाकाई जो सूरत हाल है, लोगों के जज्बात हैं, उसके एडिशंस हो जाती हैं और उसमें आ जाती हैं वो बातें। अब उसको किस हद तक उसको नेगेट किया जाए, किस हद तक उसको वो किया जाए। आप एक आदमी को, एक ऐसा आदमी जो जज्बात से मगलूब हो गया एक करबला के वाक़े की मार्फत की वजह से, देखना यह कि कौन किस मार्फत की किस लेवल पे है, वो अगर जज्बात से मगलूब हो गया है और वो कोई ऐसी हरकत कर देता है अपने उन जज्बात के बीच में, तो आप उसको ना तो परमानेंट इस्लाम का रिचुअल बना सकते हैं, ना उसको आप नेगेट कर सकते हैं कि आप गलत कर रहे हैं, क्योंकि वो जज्बात के किस लेवल पे है, वो मार्फत के किस लेवल पे है। तो इनके बीच में, और फिर कई चीजें काफी अरसे के साथ एवोल्यूशन से गुजरती हैं, उनमें तब्दीलियां आती रहती हैं। चेन्स का मिसाल के तौर पर, चेन्स का ओरिजिनल था, चेन्स की जो हिस्ट्री है, चेन होती थी ओरिजिनली, छुरियां नहीं होती थी। फिर वो जब सुबह से शाम तक मातम करते थे, जो हम सुनते आए कि एंड में कमर में जो खून जम जाता था, उनके लिए छोटी छुरियां इस्तेमाल होती थी। आज मिसाल के तौर पर छुरियों, ब्लेड्स में भी मुख्तलिफ ब्लेड्स है, छोटे ब्लेड्स है, बड़े ब्लेड है, खौफ दिलाने वाले ब्लेड्स हैं और कुछ अपने वो से हैं, लेकिन बहरहाल एक किस्म का वो बन गया। अब मातम कुल्ली तौर पे नहीं कहा जा सकता कि मातम के आज़ादारी के खिलाफ है। ये आज़ादारी में सारी चीजें आती हैं, हर एक की अपनी सोच, समझ, अक्ल, फिक्र और उसके मुताबिक। इसमें किसी का इंडिविजुअल का वो नहीं है, लेकिन कुल्ली तौर पे शरीयत ने जो इसको दिया है वो ऐलान जुल्म के तौर पर है इमाम हुसैन अलैहिस्सलाम के ऊपर, और इस्लाम के ऊपर जो जुल्म हुआ है आज तक इमाम हुसैन अलैहिस्सलाम का पैगाम जो जिंदा है, बावजूद इसके कि दीन में वादा है कि ये पैगाम जिंदा रहेगा, लेकिन हमारा काम भी आइम अतहार की तालीमात की रोशनी में उस चीज को उस अंदाज में जिंदा रखना है जहां हमारे अपने भी उसको समझ सकें और अगयार भी उसको समझ सकें।
Great answer. We've got another caller on the line. Assalamu alaikum, welcome to the show. Your name or your comment or question, please.
Yeah, wa alaikum assalam. My name is Reza Shah. I'm calling from London.
Salam, Reza.
I extend my gratitude to the two brothers there and the Maulana there. Question I have, preliminary to that is, I understand where the brother gave the list of rituals. I've missed most of them, but what I can remember on top of my head was that basically majority of the rituals there have their roots within the Sirat of Rasulullah or the Ayyam al-Tahirin. When it comes to self-flagellation, and I know I've just heard what the Maulana's speech was, that most of them you can say they have evolved. But do you think self-flagellation itself has its roots going back to any of the times of the Imams or Rasulullah? And do you think also that the self-flagellation in the modern era has been a base for negative propaganda and hence has hindered our own propagation.
Okay, Suhail, do you want to?
Yeah,
thank you
I
very
would
much,
like
Brother
to-
Reza. If you need to come back, do call us back again if you're not satisfied with the
Sure,
answer.
yeah.
But Suhail, can you? Can you
Yes,
deal
certainly.
with that?
I'll answer your second part first. You're absolutely right. Self-flagellation, because of the very nature and the way it looks outwardly, it receives bad press at best. People cannot understand it. People in the West can't understand it, and of course, people from within Shiaism who have not understood the basics and the foundations of Islam and Fiqh Jafriya, and of course the whole importance of the Ahlul Bayt will not be able to understand it in its purest term. However, let me go back to your first question. You said, is there any anything that relates it to the time of the Prophet or the time of the Imam? I'm surprised that you're asking the question, but nevertheless, we all learn from each other. Qibla will shed light on the personality of Janab Hazrat Awais Qarni and what Janab Awais Qarni did. Perhaps I'll hand it over to Qibla, and Qibla uske
No,
baare
you
mein-
explain it. I'm asking.
Well, Awais Qarni was from Yemen. He had never met the Prophet. He had a love for the Prophet. He had a distinct affiliation to him. He didn't know why or whatever. He just heard so much about the Prophet. He hadn't done the ziyarat of the Prophet yet. When after Jang-e-Badr, Jang-e-Ohud, sorry, when the Prophet he learnt that in the Jang the Prophet had lost 2 teeth. He became so sorrowful that he broke his own 2 teeth. And of course, you can't break teeth without bleeding. He then went on thinking that was it these 2 or was it these 2? This situation just exacerbated further. He ended up breaking, as it's related, pretty much all the teeth that he could reach in his mouth. He obviously would have bled. This news came to the Rasul Akram Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. It was not shunned. Qibla will put further light on this. In fact, he was given the accolade of a Ashabi. Now we revere Ashab, that to be a companion of the Prophet is the greatest position to be in. And we Shias always revere the Ashab of the Prophet. And he was given that title, yet he had never met the Prophet. He did meet the Prophet at a later stage. He later died. He was shaheed in Siffin. But to that moment, you can judge from yourself, to be risen to the accolade of Ashab Rasul when he had never met the Ashab, never met the Rasul, and his only reason for that accolade was that in his love for the Rasul Pak, and knowing that the Rasul Pak's pain and shedding of blood, he shed his own blood. So this dates from the actual Rasul Pak's own time.
So,
Qibla, would you like to expand on that?
I would say that first of all, the Awais Qarni affair, that was not taken as a ritual at the time of the Prophet. Although the Prophet's teeth they broke down in Jang-e-Ohud, but it was never accepted as a ritual for the whole Muslims that they break down their teeth during that. But that was an individual affair, as I said previously, that who is in what level of marifa, of understanding the situation, and how he reacts. Once his reaction, that you do it as a on the subsequent reaction,
spontaneous.
That's a different thing. One is something you make
Premeditated.
which is calculated, which is you organize that in an organized manner. That's a different thing. Awais Qarni, that was a spontaneous reaction to the news he had and the level of his understanding. We have got another thing about Awais Qarni, that he has his mother sick and he never met the Prophet. So once, because his mother was sick and he had heard that the Prophet has ordered that you should take care of your mother and you should respect your mother allowed him only once to go to Medina and meet the Prophet. And he traveled, but she made a condition that when you come back within this time. He reached Medina, and by the time he reached Medina, Prophet wasn't there at home. And the time was exactly that if he would have returned, he would have fulfilled the promise of his mother. So the saying of the Prophet, what he did, He turned back. He didn't wait that, oh, I've come to Medina all the way from Yemen. Now I need to see the Prophet. I won't go without seeing the Prophet. He went back in obedience to the Prophet. And when the Prophet came to the house, he said, I can see the smell of my friend from Yemen here in my house. He didn't meet the Prophet. He obeyed. The obedience is a similar thing. First of all, the message of Imam Hussein and the message that it was clear right from Karbala, right after during the times of Imams. Yes, it was clear that we need to do the Elan-e-Zulm. It is to tell the people that.
Oh, we have another caller on the line. I think that there's an interesting discussion developing there, and clearly we're not going to solve it in this show, but we are going to launch a series on this issue of rituals and performance of rituals, especially within the Maktab-e Fikr that we represent between this group of people who are here. Your comment or your question, caller. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
I just wanted to ask Sahel if someone wants to commit self-flagellation, is anyone else allowed to ban them? Can they stop them from committing that?
Okay, can I just say something on this just briefly? Everything seems to me to be subject to time and space and circumstance. We live in Britain. First of all, we're living in Britain. Let's talk about it in the context of the British environment. If I was a secular Englishman and I was to see a bunch of gentlemen in Milton Keynes or in Watford out on the streets self-flagellating with knives, blades, whatever, I would think this is unreasonable. I'd think this is not a reasoned faith.
It's not rational.
It's not rational. You know, it's not logical. It doesn't have sort of any roots in. That would be my initial reaction. I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Yes,
here.
yes.
So the first thing, I mean, the callers come in on this detailed question of can anybody actually tell us not to do it or put us down for doing it. I think I'd like to frame the question in the context of circumstance and time and place, and start with her. I mean, maybe Maulana is probably going to answering this in depth, but as the caller asked you, then I'll pass it back to you.
I will say this: that first of all, it's not the Nijazani in this country is not performed out on the road. It's not permitted out on the road. Every step is taken so that it's safeguarded. It's done in a controlled environment, following some legal issues some years back. Even under 18s are not allowed to be in that section where this is happening.
So they bring health and safety. And all sorts of issues.
But if you go to, for instance, Rasul-e-Azam, we have another issue, but we perhaps will cover demographically when we how the demographics change between different communities. But that's another issue. It's a very interesting one. Perhaps we'll raise later.
We've got 2 minutes left to wind down, but between you, I'd like 1 minute each.
As the sister said, that can anybody stop? I don't really understand. From a legal perspective, we're talking about, well, there should be no issue of legality on this. Although that is another open topic for another day.
Yeah.
As far as within the Shariat, there's nothing within the Shariat apart from one thing, that obviously that one should not be trying to commit suicide. That's the only limit that I am aware of, that any ulama will also be saying, that you do your duty, you do show your love to a limit where you are in complete control of yourself, so that next day you can fulfill your other duties as well.
30 seconds.
What I would say is that the original thing is the message of Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam, and spreading that message. Anything that's positively giving away the message directly to the people to understand are the teachings of Imam Hussein. Azadari in the form of weeping there, or having a hand on your chest or something like that. All these things, they are a source of inclining the people and telling what Imam Hussein ﷺ did in Karbala and what happened to him. And this message is continuing. It has been happening throughout the history, and during the time of 11 Imams, even Imam Ali, even the Prophet ﷺ himself, he said about when he had information from Jibreel, he did had that congregation. The message is important. All these rituals that we do, they are a mean to reach that message and spread that message. Anything which is in support of that message, and when you're spreading the message to the people, you have to do it according to the mental level of the people to whom your message is being spread. You know, there are certain rituals, but rituals can't take the place of the original message, you know. What Imam Hussein wanted to say, our ritual, I think that something is very important to spread the message. That's not important than the message of Imam Hussain alayhi salatu
Thank you,
wasalam.
Aga. Okay, I think where we've come is to no conclusion. This is simply a beginning. We've just warmed you up because if there's one thing a channel like this has to do is it has to explain itself. It has to explain its aqidah, it has to explain its actions, its rituals. It has to be an education base. That's what we're trying to do here. We're not pointing fingers or telling people what is wrong, what is right. We're necessarily trying to explore with greater clarity through the ulama, through people's personal experiences as well, and trying at the end, obviously, also to consult with Majlis Taqleeds and to come up with answers which are suitable for us in our current environment. As far as this subject goes, it's the tip of the iceberg that we've just touched, and it's a complete volcano. The reality is we will be revisiting this next week on Open Dialogue, and there will be a series that is going to be launched in terms of clarifying Majlis al-Ta'ziyah, Ziyarat al-Shura, Ziyarat al-Arba'in, al-Mawaqib, al-Husayniyah, the Tashabi, the self-flagellation, the Latm. They deserve an entire series. Each one of these programs will be dealt with in depth. So we're sorry that we're leaving you tantalized, but it should keep you tuned in next week to perhaps follow up to see what the learned guests come up with next week. Thank you for watching. Assalamu alaikum. Khuda Hafiz.